The first thing people noticed about Lila wasn't that she was blind. It was the way she listened, like every word was a lifeline, like every silence held a secret. At 17, she had the kind of beauty that felt unfair. Alabaster skin, waist-length raven hair, and sightless eyes the color of a storm-tossed sea. But what made her unforgettable was her silence. Not the kind born of fear, but the kind that made you feel like she knew everything you didn't say. That silence was what her stepmother, Simone, feared most. It was raining the night Simone sold her. The storm pounded the rooftop of their shabby countryside home, the wind howling like a creature unchained. Simone paced by the window, watching the sleek black car roll through the iron gates. Lila sat cross-legged on the threadbare couch, her fingertips gently tracing the worn braille of an old poetry book, oblivious to the transaction unfolding in her name. "She's ready," Simone muttered into her phone. "Just remember the deal, no police, no returns, she's delicate." On the other end, the man said nothing for a long moment. Then, "I'm not paying for delicate, I'm paying for silence." The call ended. The car stopped. Simone's heart began to pound, not with guilt but greed. When the door creaked open, Lila looked up. She felt it before she heard him. His presence, large and imposing, like gravity had suddenly tilted in his direction. "Who's there?" she asked softly. A deep voice answered, low and calm. "My name is Adrian Thorne. I've come to take you with me." Lila's fingers stilled on the page. "Take me where?" "To a better place," Simone interrupted, yanking the book from her lap. "Your new home, where you'll be safe, provided for. Not like here." "But why now?" Lila whispered. "Why so suddenly?" Simone didn't answer. Instead, she shoved her out the door into the storm, where Adrian was waiting beneath a large black umbrella. His face was partially hidden, but Lila could feel his gaze scanning her like an algorithm calculating her worth. Adrian didn't speak. He simply held out his hand. Lila hesitated, then took it. That was the last time she ever stepped foot in the house she had grown up in, the only place that had ever been both her prison and her protection. The ride into the city was silent. Adrian's car was a fortress on wheels, quiet, warm, perfumed with leather and control. Lila sat stiffly, her cane folded in her lap, her thoughts racing. Why had Simone sold her, and to whom? And for what? Her hand trembled. She'd always been good at pretending she wasn't afraid, but this time she wasn't sure she could keep the act going. "Why did you buy me?" she asked, breaking the silence. Adrian glanced at her. She couldn't see it, but she felt it. The shift in the air, the sudden tension. "I didn't buy you," he said finally. "I rescued you." "Is that what Simone told you to call it?" He didn't reply. Lila swallowed. "What are you going to do with me?" "Feed you, house you, keep you safe. You sound like someone adopting a stray cat." A ghost of a smile touched Adrian's lips. "You don't talk like a 17-year-old. "I don't see like one either," she snapped. He chuckled. "Touché." The car pulled into a gated estate perched on a hilltop. Through the rain-streaked glass, Lila could hear the rush of fountains, the whisper of trimmed hedges, and the distant bark of trained dogs. When the door opened, warm hands helped her out, guiding her up stone steps into a world that smelled of cedarwood, roses, and something sharper, like ambition. Her new prison was a palace. Later that night, Lila sat alone in a guest suite bigger than her entire house back home. The bed was a cloud. The walls were lined with books, yes, some in braille. A piano stood in the corner, recently tuned. It was too perfect, too prepared. She reached out, running her fingers over the bookshelf, searching for something real. Her mind was a whirlwind of suspicion and wonder. She had always imagined what luxury might feel like, but she had never imagined it would come with such quiet danger. She heard the door open behind her. Adrian stepped in, his voice low. "There's something you need to know. I didn't just take you to be kind." Lila turned. Her heartbeat slowed to a dangerous rhythm. "I figured," she said. He stepped closer, the air thick between them. Your stepmother owes me a debt. A very old, very dangerous debt she offered you in place of payment. And you accepted? I didn't say yes. I said I'd listen. And after listening, I brought you here. She tilted her head. So what happens now? Adrian hesitated, and then he said the unthinkable. You're not the first. Layla felt the floor tilt. What? There were others, girls, women, all connected to the same deal, all disappeared. She backed away. So I'm next? No. His voice was sharp now, urgent. I'm ending it. By taking me? By protecting you from what's coming. Her voice cracked. Which is? He stepped forward again, slowly this time. Someone is hunting the debtors in their blood. Simone isn't the only one who sold something she shouldn't have. But you're the only one who doesn't deserve to be part of it. Lila shook her head. I don't understand. You will, he said, placing something in her hand. It was cold, metal. A key. To what? She asked. He leaned close. His breath brushed her cheek. To the truth. The key Adrian had placed in Lila's hand felt heavier than it should have. Smooth edges, cool metal, oddly shaped teeth. She turned it over in her palm as if it might whisper secrets if held long enough. The East Wing is off limits to everyone, Adrian had told her before vanishing down the hallway. But that key. It opens only one door in a palace of hundreds. She didn't sleep that night, how could she? Every creak of the mansion made her flinch. Every brush of wind against the window felt like a whisper meant only for her. She was in a stranger's home, a billionaire's fortress with a secret key, a cryptic warning, and the growing sense that nothing here was what it seemed. By sunrise, she made her decision. She was going to find the door. Navigating the East Wing wasn't easy. Adrian had installed a variety of aids for her in the main parts of the house. Voice-guided panels, tactile maps, and a personal assistant named Nora who seemed part human, part machine. But here, in the shadowed, silent East Wing, there was nothing, only dust, stillness, and the feeling that she wasn't alone. Her cane tapped along the marble tiles, echoing through the corridor. She kept one hand brushing the wallpaper, textured brocade with the faint scent of age and lavender. She paused at every door she passed, fingers grazing the handles. None of them had keyholes, none until the 7th. It was the only door made. Of oak, not glass or painted wood. Heavy, solid, cold, and at waist level there was a keyhole. Her fingers trembled as she slid the key in. It fit perfectly. Click. The door creaked open, releasing a breath of air that had been trapped for years, thick, musty, laced with memories. She stepped inside. The room was quiet. No echo, no hum of electronics, no artificial scent. It felt like stepping back in time. She trailed her fingers along the walls, lined with frames. Photographs, though she couldn't see them. She found a desk next, paper strewn and layered in dust. And then her foot struck something. She reached down, a box, old, wooden, unlocked. Inside were braille pages, old and fragile, a journal. She gasped. Her fingers flew across the dots. June 3rd. Year unknown, I was brought here the same way, sold for silence. But Adrian wasn't like the others. He didn't touch me, he didn't hurt me, he taught me, trained me, prepared me. Lila's throat tightened. This wasn't just any girl. This was someone like her. She flipped to the next entry. He says I'm the key. That my voice, my knowledge can end the curse. I don't know what that means yet, but I feel it. Something ancient, old blood, broken promises. They think the girls were victims. But we were vessels. She swallowed hard. What was Adrian hiding? Who were these girls? She read on, line after line, entry after entry. The journal's final page was dated 5 years ago. He's sending me away. Says the time isn't right. But he swore to protect the next one. Her name will be Lila. Lila dropped the book. How could this girl have known her name? Suddenly the lights flickered. She froze. A chill swept the room. Someone else was there. Lila, a voice whispered. Her heart jumped. Who's there? No answer. Just a sudden rush of air as the door slammed shut. She ran to it, yanked the handle, locked. Her cane struck the wood uselessly. Hello, someone, let me out. The walls felt like they were closing in, and then she heard it again, faint like a recording, a girl's voice, whispering, repeating, You are the last. The voice, the vessel. Lila pressed her palms to her ears. No, stop. Suddenly the lock clicked again. The door creaked open, and standing there, backlit by the morning light, was Adrian. He looked at the journal on the floor, then at her. You found her. Lila was trembling. Who was she? Adrian exhaled slowly. Her name was Marin. She was the first. First of what? He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. There's something you need to know. My family, my bloodline is cursed. Generations ago, one of my ancestors made a deal with a woman who wasn't entirely human, a seer, a keeper of ancient knowledge. He betrayed her, took her gift, left her blind and broken. Lila's breath hitched. The curse? She asked softly. Every generation a girl is born who carries her sight, not in her eyes but in her mind. She sees things no one else can, not visions, truths, secrets, power. These girls, they're drawn to my bloodline, and my bloodline, in turn, is drawn to them. Lila backed away. You think I'm one of them? I know you are. Is that why you took me? To break the curse? No, Adrian said. To protect you from the ones who want to use you. Like Simone? Worse. He handed her something. A photograph. She couldn't see it, but she felt the ridges, the outlines. It was embossed for her. That's her, he said. Marin. Lila ran her fingers over the image. A young girl, long hair, blindfolded. You said she was the first. She was the first who survived long enough to write the truth. Lila's voice shook. And me? You might be the last. That night, Lila stood by her window, holding the journal to her chest. Outside, the wind carried whispers, names, memories, warnings. Something was coming. She could feel it in her bones. Adrian had secrets, yes, but so did she. Because even though she was blind, she had started to see things. Visions. Moments before. They happened. Faces she'd never met but knew by heart. And deep inside her, a voice had begun to whisper. Not in fear, but in purpose. The wind howled like a beast outside the mansion's grand windows, rattling panes and stirring unease in the air. Somewhere deep within the east wing, an old grandfather clock chimed 12, midnight. Lila sat on the edge of her bed, the journal, still clutched to her chest. She hadn't spoken since Adrian told her the truth, or at least his version of it. Her mind spun with fragments she couldn't piece together. Marin, the curse, the seer, and most unsettling of all, the idea that she was the last. What did that mean? Why her? She had spent her whole life in the shadows, forgotten, unwanted, blind but not blind enough to the cruelty of the world. Now suddenly she was being told she was important, powerful, that people wanted her not for who she was, but for what lived inside her. The room was quiet, but her heart wasn't. Thump, thump, thump. She could feel it pounding against her ribs, like a warning drum. The kind of warning people didn't survive in horror stories. Then came the knock. 3 sharp taps on the door. She stilled. Nora, the assistant Adrian had assigned to her, always announced herself before entering. And Adrian wouldn't come at midnight. Not without calling first. She waited. Another knock. Louder this time. More urgent. She rose from the bed slowly, her cane in hand. Her fingers brushed the door handle. Who's there? She asked. No answer. Then, a whisper, right against the door, so faint she almost thought it was her imagination. Let me in. Lila backed away. Who are you? The whisper came again, but it wasn't just sound, it was inside her head. Lila. I know what you are. You're not safe here. Her breath hitched. Get out of my head. They'll never let you leave. Adrian. He lies. He always lies. She bolted toward the nightstand, fumbling for the emergency button Adrian had told her to press if she ever felt unsafe. Just as her hand reached it, the door flung open on its own. But no one was there. Only cold, air-heavy, metallic. It smelled like rust and roses. Her cane tapped forward into the hallway, still no sound. No movement. Then, light footsteps like a child's. Faint, barefoot. She turned her head toward them. "Hello?" A girl's voice answered. "I was like you once." Lila froze. The voice was soft, innocent, but not warm. It was flat, lifeless, like someone reciting a memory they didn't feel anymore. "You're Maren?" Lila asked. The girl didn't answer, but Lila knew. "Why are you here?" The footsteps circled her now, like a wind orbiting her body. She felt it in her bones. "To warn you," Maren's voice whispered. "Before it happens again." "Before what happens?" "The fire." Lila's breath caught. What fire? But the voice was gone, and when she stepped forward into the hallway, her foot brushed something soft. Fabric. A doll. She bent down, feeling it. Porcelain face, braided hair, hollow eyes. Its mouth had been stitched shut. The next morning, Lila confronted Adrian. She didn't knock. She simply opened the door to his study, gripping the doll in her hands like a weapon. He looked up from a set of documents. "Lila." "I saw her," she said. "Last night, Maren." Adrian's calm exterior didn't crack, but his fingers tightened slightly around his pen. "She spoke to you? She said you lied, that you're hiding something." Adrian stood, walked over slowly, took the doll from her hands. He stared at it for a long time. "I was afraid this would happen," he murmured. "She said there'd be a fire," Lila pressed. "That I wasn't safe." "She's wrong," Adrian said. "This house is protected. I've spent years making sure of it." "Protected from what?" He looked at her. Finally, really looked at her. And for the first time, she heard fear in his voice. "There are people, families who know about the bloodline, about the girls. For generations they've tried to harness that power. Some by force, others by manipulation. When Maren ran, they found her. Set the house she escaped. To on fire. She didn't survive." Lila's heart sank. "She died in flames." "She was the only one who died that night," Adrian said softly. "But her power remained." "In me?" "I believe so." Lila's voice shook. "So what now? They come for me?" Adrian nodded. "Yes, but not in the way you think." That evening, the mansion was locked down. Security was tripled. Sensors installed. Rooms sealed. But it wasn't enough, because the danger wasn't coming from outside. It was already inside. Lila was in the music room, sitting at the piano. Her fingers drifted across the keys, playing a haunting tune Maren had taught her through the journal, something ancient and forgotten. A melody that stirred the air itself. As she played, the chandelier above began to sway. And then, a voice, behind her. "You're playing it wrong." She spun. No one was there. But a shadow flickered against the far wall. Not cast by light, but by something darker. Her fingers trembled on the keys. "You're not Maren," she whispered. "No," the voice agreed. "She warned you. I will finish it." Lila stood slowly, her cane in hand. "What do you want?" "Not what," the voice said. "Who?" The air around her thickened. The lights flickered. Then the melody she had just played began to echo, note for note, from the piano. Though she was no longer touching it, she backed toward the door, and then crash! The chandelier fell, shattering inches from her feet. The ground shook, and somewhere in the house, an alarm blared. Adrian burst into the room moments later. She was curled in the corner, hands over her ears. "They're already here," she said. "Inside. One of them is inside." Adrian's voice was grave. "Then we're out of time." He reached into his coat and pulled out a worn scroll. Old, frayed, sealed in wax. "This is the original curse," he said, written in the seer's own hand. "The only way to break it is to finish what she began." "How?" Lila asked. "You have to go back. Back where? To the place she died, the burned house. Lila's lips parted. You want me to walk into a ruin where they killed her? Yes, because there's something waiting for you there, a truth even I'm not allowed to know. But you were chosen, Lila swallowed. When? Tomorrow night, Adrian said. At the same hour, midnight, the anniversary of her death. That night, Lila didn't sleep. She sat on her bed, the doll beside her, the journal in her lap, and when the clock struck 12 again, the voice returned. We burned, but now we rise, and Lila whispered back, I'm not afraid of fire anymore. The next day, the skies above the estate darkened as if mourning something not yet lost. Thunder rolled lazily across the horizon, not quite a storm, but a threat of one. The kind that hung heavy in the air, as if waiting for something, or someone, to break. Lila stood in the mansion's foyer, her cane in one hand, the ancient journal in the other, and her lips set in quiet determination. Dressed in a black coat and boots Adrian had given her, she looked smaller than usual, but somehow stronger too, like a shadow sharpening in low light. I'm ready, she told Adrian. He stood across from her, face unreadable. In one hand, he held the scroll sealed in wax, the original curse, and in the other, a silver lighter, old and engraved with an insignia Lila couldn't see but had once belonged to his ancestor. Are you sure? He asked. No, she said honestly. But I don't think I ever will be. That doesn't mean I shouldn't go. He nodded. Then let's finish this. The car ride was silent. Not just quiet, but suffocatingly, deliberately silent. Even the engine seemed to hum under its breath. Lila could feel it in her chest. The distance between her and the truth was narrowing. She was heading to the burned remains of the place where Maren had died, where fire had consumed not just wood and brick, but legacy and lies. According to Adrian, the house had never been rebuilt. The land had been left untouched, avoided by locals, and erased from public maps. But Lila knew better. Some wounds aren't meant to be forgotten. Some scars scream louder than memory. When the car stopped, the silence broke. We're here, Adrian said softly. Lila stepped out onto gravel, then grass, then ash. The air was different here, heavy with soot even years later. She didn't need to see to know this place had suffered. She walked carefully, guided by instinct more than anything. Adrian didn't follow her. He stayed at the car, as promised. This is your path, he'd said. I've guided you as far as I can. As she moved deeper onto the land, her cane tapped something unexpected. Stone steps. She bent down, running her hand over the first step. Burned, cracked, but intact. A foundation that refused to die. She climbed. At the top, she stopped. There was no door, no walls, only scorched floorboards that groaned under her weight and outlines of what once had been rooms. Then, something shifted. The air changed. The wind carried a scent she hadn't smelled since the night Maren spoke. To her in the hallway, roses and rust. And then she heard the music, the same melody she had played on the piano. It drifted through the ruin as if the wind itself remembered. Then came the voice. You returned. Lila turned. She couldn't see her, but she could feel her Maren, or something wearing Maren's memory. I need to understand, Lila said. Why me? Why now? The voice answered. Because the curse is not punishment. It is prophecy. We were never meant to suffer. We were meant to awaken. Awaken what? The ruins around her began to shimmer, not with light, but memory. In a blink, the charred floor reassembled in her mind. The room rebuilt itself. She saw it, not with her eyes, but with something deeper. Suddenly, she stood in a nursery, music box spinning, curtains fluttering. Fire not yet consuming, then screams, panic, smoke. And then a girl younger than her, blindfolded, pushed into a closet by a man with trembling hands. Adrian, no. Someone else, older, rougher. You were there, Lila whispered. You died hiding. I died because I trusted the wrong bloodline. Then Marin's voice changed. But you carry the truth. The curse never belonged to you, it belongs to them. To who? To the ones who broke the vow. Adrian's ancestors stole from the seer, promised to protect her power, but instead tried to control it. Every girl since has carried a piece of her, but none were ready. Until me? Until you. Lila swallowed. Then what do I do? Break the chain. A low hum rose in the air. The melody shifted, twisting from haunting to powerful. The journal in Lila's hand grew warm. The wax scroll in her coat pocket pulsed. She dropped to her knees in the ashes. I don't know the words. Yes, you do. They are already inside you. She opened the scroll. The braille rose like embers beneath her fingers, the language ancient. But she read it, spoke it aloud. The wind howled. The ashes lifted from the ground, circling her in a spiral. The foundation began to quake, and then she felt it. Something inside her. Releasing, unfolding. Back at the car, Adrian watched as the ground shook beneath the ruins. Fire didn't erupt, but light did. A beam of white light exploded into the sky like a signal, stretching through the clouds, splitting the heavens. He shielded his eyes, and for the first time in his life, he cried. Lila stood in the center of the ruins, no longer blind, not in the way that mattered. She saw it all, every girl, every lie, every attempt to bury the truth, and she saw the seer, the woman who started it all, not cursed, not vengeful, but waiting, and then smiling. You did it, Marin said. You set us free. Lila smiled back, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm ready to go home. But Marin shook her head. You're not done yet, because now they'll come for you, not to control, to destroy. The wind had died. Ash settled around her feet like the final breath of a dying world. The ruined house, once only broken beams and ghostly echoes, now stood still, no longer haunted, but hollowed. Whatever curse had clung to its bones had been burned away by truth, not fire. Lila stood in the center, breathing hard. The scroll in her hand had dissolved after the last word was spoken, its ashes rising with the wind and vanishing into the night sky like scattered prayers. The air was calm. Too calm. Marin? Lila asked. No answer. The visions, the voices, the unseen music, they were all gone. Only silence remained. Deep, final. She turned slowly, tapping her cane over the scorched floorboards, but it didn't feel like wood anymore. It was stone now, solid, cold, as if the house had not only rebuilt itself in memory, but had somehow returned to its truest form. Not a home, a temple, a place of power. She reached the edge of the room and stopped. A figure stood at the bottom of the hill, dressed in black, their face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Lila's breath caught. She didn't need to see to know they weren't. Human? She could feel it in the air. Something wrong. Something old. Like the curse hadn't been the disease at all, but the protection. And now that it was gone, something else was free. Adrian drove Lila back in silence. But this time the silence wasn't empty. It was dense with tension. I saw her, Lila said after nearly 10 minutes of driving. She's still watching. Marin, or something that wears her. Adrian's hands gripped the wheel tightly. I know. You said breaking the curse would end everything. I said it would end the curse. I never said it would end the consequences. Lila turned her head toward the window, though she could only sense the blur of trees whipping past. I thought I did something good. You did, Adrian said. You freed them, the girls, their souls, their power. But I let something else in. Yes. That night, Lila sat alone in the library of the mansion, curled into one of the deep velvet chairs. The fire crackled beside her. The doll Marin had left her sat on the shelf now, still with its mouth stitched shut. Lila ran her fingers along the spine of the journal. It was blank now. Every word had vanished after the ritual. She didn't understand why. Until she turned to the back page. One sentence remained. The seer sleeps only when forgotten. And suddenly, Lila understood. The curse hadn't been a prison for the girls, it had been a seal, a warning. And now, she had broken it. Not just the curse, the lock. She rushed out of the library, down the hall to Adrian's study, and slammed the door open. He looked up, startled. She wasn't cursing us, Lila said. She was protecting the world from something. That's why the bloodline was passed down. That's why the girls kept dying. Not because they were being hunted, but because they were sacrifices. Adrian rose slowly from behind his desk. "There's something you're not telling me," she said. He didn't speak, so she pressed. "Who was the seer?" He sighed. "No one knows. She existed before records. Before language, maybe. Some say she was the first to see the threads of fate, and the first to try and cut them. She failed. The world punished her by binding her spirit in flesh, reborn over and over into girls who would never be allowed to live long enough to awaken her. Again, Lila's voice trembled. "But I survived." He nodded. "Which means she has too." The next morning, the mansion awoke to blood. Nora, Adrian's assistant, was found in the garden, eyes missing, mouth full of dirt, a symbol carved into her chest, one Lila had seen only once. On the scroll before it turned to ash, Adrian didn't cry. He simply knelt beside the body and whispered, "It started." Lila didn't ask what. She already knew. That night, Adrian took Lila to a chamber beneath the mansion, one she didn't know existed. It was older than the house itself. Carved into the bedrock, lit with torches that hadn't been touched in years. In the center was a stone table, and upon it carvings in ancient symbols, names, all girls, all blind. "My family," Adrian said, "has guarded this place for centuries, not to protect the girls, but to contain what they carried." He turned to her. "You're the last. There are no more after you." "Then what happens now?" she asked. "We fight," Adrian said, "or we die." Suddenly the torches blew out. Darkness swallowed the chamber. Lila couldn't see, but she didn't need to. A whisper slithered through the stone. "You should have stayed blind." She reached for Adrian's hand, but it was gone. The chamber was empty. Then a voice behind her. "Do you remember your mother?" She froze. "She tried to keep you. She begged for your life. They burned her for it." "Lies," Lila said. "No. Truth wrapped in flames." Then a sharp whisper against her ear. "You are not the girl anymore, you are the gate." A cold hand touched her shoulder, and she screamed. When the torches lit again, she was alone. Adrian was gone. And the stone table now bore a new carving. Her name. She ran from the chamber, heart slamming like a war drum in her chest. Her cane tapped wildly over stone and stairs and floorboards until she burst into the mansion's great hall. The doll sat upright on the table now, unmoving. But somehow, watching, she didn't know what to do, so she did the only thing she could. She screamed, "I am not your gate," and the air around her cracked like thunder. Every window in the mansion shattered. The doll burst into flame, and a voice rose. Not Mirren's, not the seer's, but her own, yet not quite. "Then be the storm instead." And Lila's eyes opened for the first time. She saw everything.